Hello and welcome to the WIHS Journal Public Affairs from 104.9 FM. I'm Paul Kretschmer. Today and tomorrow I'm going to be speaking with a guest who believes in taking traditional values in the Christian faith and moving people of God back to those values for the betterment of the country. Chuck Crismier is on the line with me here on the WIHS Journal today. We have been brought together as a result of a conversation I had with an associate of mine who also knows Chuck, and we are going to ask him some questions about where the state of this country is going and maybe the spiritual identification behind it, and what point, perhaps based on some of that, or maybe all of it, would you like people to take away from as a result of what we have to say here for the next few minutes, Chuck?
Well, I'll tell you, we're in deep, deep trouble. We've been told that many times, and indeed, Franklin Graham got on the television and said America's in deep, deep trouble. And there are efforts to try to call we the people together at the Washington Mall on the 26th of September for an event called The Return, ostensibly for the purpose of praying for revival in our country. On the other hand, that's been done now for 40, 50 years, and I've been involved in many of those efforts, solemn assemblies and national days of prayer and so on. But we haven't seen that kind of revival in all of those times. And I think it has something to do with the condition of the church. Not the condition of the nation, but the condition of the church. We know the condition of the nation is severe. But what we haven't been willing to recognize is the condition of professing Christians is severe from the viewpoint of God. And he says, if my people, which are called by my name, would humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their own wicked ways, then I would hear from heaven, forgive their sin, and heal their land. And unfortunately, the way that's been interpreted for the past 30 years is if those liberals and the abortionists and the homosexuals and Slick Willie in the White House or whatever would just get back to some traditional American values, then we could have 3 chickens in every pot, 4 cars in every garage, and live happily ever after with the American dream. And God says, that's not what I had in mind. What I had in mind was my people, those who profess my name. That's where my problem is. And so we're in a situation where it's kind of fish or cut bait for professing Christians to decide, okay, are we going to agree with God's assessment, his viewpoint, or are we going to continue parading our own and not see the kind of spiritual revival that we're hoping for and know that we desperately need, and then let things play out with continued chaos in our streets? And so that brings up another whole issue, Paul, and that is where do we stand, not with regard to our nation, but where do we stand with regard to our God? And the times that have been foretold, both in the Old Testament and the New Testament, ushering in the second coming of Jesus Christ. So, as one who is on the air every single day with my own program, Viewpoint, live every day for the past 25 years, and written 9 books now, and dealing with these issues, where my heart is, and I actually think where God's heart is the necessity of preparing his own people for the tremendously difficult times that are on the horizon. We're already feeling it. We're already seeing it. But we're not making the connection, the prophetic connection yet. And so that's why my last book is called Antichrist, How to Identify the Coming Imposter.
Do people who profess to be Christians assume that they've already arrived and that it's someone else who needs to grab some bull or other by the horns and wrestle with it? It sounds to me like, to a certain extent, people who believe to be Christians already have given themselves a pass and no longer feel personal accountability because they think they've already arrived.
Paul, you have put it so well. That's exactly the problem. And I'll tell you, the most difficult place that we've had to take our national program is in the Bible Belt of America for the past 25 years. It's as if the people feel that they have received a vaccination or inoculation with just enough truth to where they feel like, we've got it, we're on our way to the pearly gates, and that's it. But when you discover that for the past 20 years, the divorce rate in the Bible Belt has exceeded the nation as a whole by 50%, you know that there's something very wrong within the broader Christian community. So God knows that. We may not realize it yet, but He knows it. And we're kind of at a fish or cut bait moment. And as I said, this is in the context not of America per se, but all of that is in the context of the intersection of prophecy and history as they're converging together in a surging maelstrom heading inexorably to the second coming. And if that be true, and God says that judgment's going to begin at the house of God, it would behoove us then to take a little more seriously His diagnosis of His own people, His own church, particularly here in America. So in my book, Antichrist, How to Identify the Coming Imposter, the central theme is, well, yeah, we all know about the mark of the beast, but how about our condition as a people, as professing Christians, to be seduced and sucked in by the very character, the very seduction, the very deception that is going to be so characteristic of this counterfeit Christ figure. The way the prophet Daniel describes him, and the way the Apostle Paul describes him, the seduction is going to be so great. In fact, Jesus himself warned that the deception and seduction would be so great that if it were possible, even the very small remnant elect would be deceived. Now that tells me we're not ready. We're not ready, no way, no how. And we need to understand the nature and the characteristics of this counterfeit Christ figure that I called the imposter. How to identify the coming imposter. If we don't understand that, we are going to be seduced, we're going to be deceived. And so the book is not just about it's not about sensationalism. It's about the seriousness of us coming to grips with our times and identifying these amazing characteristics that are set forth in the book of Daniel, the book of Revelation, the book of Thessalonians, and even the book of Matthew.
When I look at the Christian church across America in macro terms, it feels to me like the faith of many is about a mile wide and about an inch deep. And I'm not really certain that people are actually prepared to go to the level that you're talking about, because in many cases the basics aren't even there, let alone the persistence and the discipline to do the kind of reading, the kind of study, the kind of prayer time and so on that something like you're describing actually calls for, in my opinion.
Well, that's exactly the case. And what we're finding is even the nature of what is being taught and preached in so many of our churches across the land, even so-called evangelical churches, is so milky toast, so watered down, that it's basically, how to have your best life now. But it's not about preparing and discipling people to be strong in the Lord and the power of His might, and to be girded with the whole armor of God. And so what this book does is set the stage for increasing our faith and strengthening our innermost being, and showing us how to do that and why that is so critically important. It's just not happening.
Chuck Crismier is my guest today, and he'll be back again tomorrow on the WIHS Journal. For further information, call us at 860-346-1049, or visit our site on YouTube, our channel, WIHS 1049, for selected editions. The opinions expressed are those of the participants, not necessarily those of the staff or management of the station. I'm Paul Kretschmer on the WIHS Journal, Public Affairs from WIHS.